Joining us now, U.S. national editor at the Financial Times, Ed Luce. He's out with a new opinion piece this morning for the Financial Times entitled, "Even if Trump loses, Trumpism will live on." Also with us, the author of Winners Take All, MSNBC political analyst and publisher of the .Inc. newsletter, Anand Giridharadas. His latest piece is entitled, "Why Don Quit Donald, the Story of a Voter Who Changed His Mind." So this is a great sort of parallel of different stories. I think I'll start with you, Anand, and tell us about the voter.
I put out a feeler. There was this polling that you just cited before the break. 86% of Trump's 2016 voters are still with him, but 6% are not. And I think in the discourse right now, it's easy to forget that 6%. So I wanted to know who they were. So I put out a feeler on Twitter to share stories with me. And I got the most extraordinary story about a man named Don, 87-year-old man in Southern California, kind of a moderate rock rib country club Republican, coming of age in the 50s and 60s. It kind of talks about how the hippies are ruining America in the 60s to his kids. If you don't like America, love it or leave it. But a kind of sane, reasonable Republican, maybe that Joe would see himself in. Fighter pilot in the Air Force, then commercial pilot for American Airlines. And 20 years ago, Don gets Parkinson's, and his daughter tells me this story of as she saw it hurt his body and his mind, he started to become, one of his symptoms became kind of gullible to conspiracy theories. And this was in the moment in American life when disinformation was ramping up, Fox News was ramping up, email forwards about birtherism are ramping up, and Don became one of millions, tens of millions of victims of an American age of disinformation, and starts to really think President Obama was born somewhere else, starts to become sympathetic to Trump, who's against everything he believes, votes for Trump. And then a very strange thing happens, which is Don, because of the progression of Parkinson's, loses the ability to type his passwords into his computer, and he gets locked out, and he stops suddenly being able to read all these email forwards, and he kind of turns away from Fox News. And as soon as he is unplugged from this IV of untruth in Trump's first year in office, he falls out of belief. The high goes away when you take the drugs away. So much of Trumpism is upheld by literally living in fantasy. And so his family watches, and they worked on him. 2018, he starts to come around. 2020 rolls around, and Don says, for the first time in his life, 87-year-old guy, I'm going to vote for Democrat. I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. He's a stand-up guy. And the twist in this story is, as he starts asking in September, where's my mail-in ballot? I need my mail-in ballot. And the reason he was so impatient, although many of us are impatient right now, is Don, at the same time, even as he was awaiting his mail-in ballot, had decided under California's End-of-Life Option Act, because of his debilitating terminal disease, he had decided to end his own life in late September. And he was hoping against hope that his ballot would arrive before his scheduled date of leaving this earth, flying west, as they say in the Air Force, and waiting. And he wanted, as his last thing on earth, for it to be known that he made a mistake in 2016, that it's okay to change your mind in a democracy. In fact, that's the only thing that has ever saved a democracy. And his daughter shared his story with me in the hope that others who have outlived Don will be able to help honor his last wish.
It's a fascinating story. It reminds me, Willie, though, of when Anand was talking about emails that were getting passed around. We sit and think that disinformation started with Facebook and started with other networks. I remember when I was in Congress, my mom would sit around. There was an email that used to go around back when email was the best way to spread conspiracy theories. And I'd get it every morning. It'd be like, did you know 372 members of Congress have declared bankruptcy? 262 were child molesters. 148 have killed. I was like, Mom, I'm in Congress. Stop sending this garbage to me. But back in 1964, 65, I think there was a book about Lyndon Johnson called None. dare call it treason. And, there were rumors about LBJ killing all of these people, killing Kennedy. Of course, we had the rumors of George H.W. Bush shipping cocaine into South Central L.A. When he was running the CIA. We have stories of Bill Clinton spread by Jerry Falwell in the Clinton Chronicles of murdering people. Of course, the George W. Bush is a Nazi, the birtherism. This has been going on for quite some time, Willie. It's just easier to spread the lies, easier to spread the virus these days because of Facebook.
Yeah, I remember those emails you're talking about. They often, one line would be in red font, the next one in blue, and different font size, those crazy emails that would go around. The difference now, I think, as Anand has talked about quite a bit, is that there's a president now who's lifted so much of that out of the shadow and given it legitimacy and told people who believe those things, like the Q conspiracies, that they are valid, that this is real, that they should be pursued. He's amplified them with his own voice. He's amplified them online. And as you say, Facebook has a huge role in all of this, too.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube. And make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.